All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're diving into the incredibly atmospheric first chapter of Lost Girls, Eden's Descent. We get dropped right into this small Utah town, and the story doesn't open with a bang. No, it's this suffocating silence of grief that really sets the stage for what becomes this massive collision of faith, fury, and some seriously buried secrets.
So the whole story really opens under the weight of this one scripture. And it's not just a quote, right? This is supposed to be the central promise of this entire community, to be there for each other, to mourn with the mourning and comfort those who need it. But as we're about to see, that promise is pretty much the very first thing to get broken.
So the first act just throws us right into the silent chapel where the Hale family is completely isolated in their sorrow. They're surrounded by people, sure, but the comfort they're getting feels, well, hollow.
And that silence in the chapel, it's not peaceful. It's totally oppressive. You can almost feel the air thick with the smell of dying flowers, a scent that's described as a half-forgotten promise laced with a hint of bleach. I mean, what a perfect metaphor for the kind of empty comfort they're being offered. The choice of flowers here is just so on point. On one hand, you have the intention, these pure white lilies, but on the other, you have the reality. They're already wilting, already decaying. It just perfectly captures that huge gap between the community's good intentions and the family's harsh, really painful grief. And at the heart of this family, you've got Zadokiel Hale. This is the patriarch, a bishop, a man who used to speak with fire and conviction. But now, that fire's gone out. His grief isn't loud, but the story calls it seismic, like a quiet earthquake just shaking the very foundations of everything he believes in. Right next to him are his youngest daughters, Hope and Charity, and they're just humming these little children's hymns like families can be together forever. Their innocence is so haunting here. It's like they're trying to sing their mother back to life, which is just this heartbreaking contrast to the reality of the whole scene. And then there's Eden. She's standing apart from all of them, not in quiet grief, but in this simmering rage. She's wearing combat boots, her eyes are full of sleepless fury. She is not here for empty words. She's just watching the pulpit like a hawk, waiting. Okay, so now we get to the chapter's big turning point. This is where Eden's private anger becomes very, very public, and that fragile peace in the chapel just absolutely shatters. The service starts, and the bishop up there delivers a sermon that sounds like it could have been copied and pasted from a manual. You know the type. All these polished, well-rehearsed promises about eternal families, words that mean absolutely nothing to a family that felt totally abandoned when things got real. And that's when Eden's voice just cuts through the room. It's raw, it's real, and she is not apologizing. She calls out the bishop, and really the entire community, for being absent when it actually mattered. She just punctures that whole holy atmosphere with a dose of brutal, honest truth. And the reaction is immediate. You can feel the shock, gasps, someone drops a book. But the most powerful detail here, it's Zadokiel's reaction, or lack of one. Her father, a leader in this church, does absolutely nothing to stop her. His silence is basically an endorsement, and it just makes her words hit that much harder. Eden's exit isn't just an exit, it's a full-on statement. The sound of her boots on the tile is described as a Morse code of rupture. I mean, how great is that? Each step is signaling a break from her community, from tradition, and from the polite silence that was basically suffocating them all. So after that huge public explosion, the conflict echoes back at the Hale house, and now the family is left to try and pick up the pieces, completely on their own. And even though they're all under the same roof, every single one of them is grieving in total isolation. Zadokiel is just performing this useless ritual, polishing shoes. The younger girls retreat into memories and drawings. And Eden? She channels everything into a furious search for answers. They're a family, but they've been broken apart by this loss. While she's pouring all this anger into her mother's journal, Eden finds this note, tucked inside her mother's scriptures. It's a message from beyond the grave, and it's so ambiguous. Is it telling her to be graceful, or is it a warning to stay on guard? And this is the moment the story pivots from just being about grief to being a real mystery. And this is where the chapter really builds to its climax. That initial fire from Eden's outburst has died down, but now there's this single ember of suspicion that starts to glow in the dark, hinting that there is way more to this story than just a tragic death.
The story's pace just picks up like crazy right here. Eden makes a promise at the grave, then this mysterious woman in a red coat shows up and disappears, and then, the biggest clue yet, she finds a sealed letter from her dead mother. The story has officially become a thriller. And just when you think the suspense can't get any higher, Zadokiel, her father, finally breaks his silence. But he doesn't offer comfort or an explanation. He offers a threat. This chilling, cryptic warning that basically confirms all of Eden's fears. Her mother's death wasn't an ending, it was a beginning.
And that's exactly where the chapter leaves us. The stage is set for a huge confrontation, not just with the community, but with a potentially dangerous secret. It really makes you wonder, in a town that's built on faith and silence, what happens when a girl armed with fury starts demanding the truth? What in the world is buried in Zion?